arms embargo on Iran lasted 13 years. It's now history. It's part of the 2015 nuclear deal that the country made with multiple countries, including the U.S., even though America eventually did pull out of that deal. And Iran can now buy certain weapons it previously could not. What's it allowed to buy? For more context on this deal, I spoke with Behnam Ben Taleblu from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Behnam, the embargo's gone. What can Iran buy now, and who can they buy it from?
Well, even though Washington has unilaterally sought to restore the embargo through secondary sanctions, and let's not forget this embargo was previously found in a UN resolution that codified the 2015 Iran nuclear deal, Iran is likely to go abroad not to overhaul its military, but perhaps reconnect with Russia and China, much like it did after the Iran-Iraq war. You can expect Iran to want to engage in a program of selective modernization, perhaps get some anti-access area denial, anti-ship systems, air defense systems, and perhaps even cruise missiles from Russia or China, or perhaps shop around the globe in black markets for associated technologies and component parts for things it produces at home. The real challenge, of course, for Washington is being able to target the defense sectors of its competitors like Russia and China, as well as crack down on places Iran likes to go shopping in.
Setting aside Russia and China, is the rest of the world who abstained from this UN resolution comfortable dealing with Iran? Would Germany sell them a weapon?
In my best guess, I don't think countries like Germany or the UK would want to immediately rush to flood Iran with arms, or they may even reject Iranian requests for certain types of conventional weapons outright. Moreover, they will, as their banking sector has proven, be risk averse and want to conform with U.S. sanctions despite politically wanting to adhere to the implementation timeline of the Iran nuclear deal. But Iran doesn't care about that. Iran has already been shopping in Germany since the nuclear deal was agreed to in 2015. They've tried to procure component parts for their missile program. That's something German intelligence has said since 2015 to present. Now again, Iran may simply have an easier time and not have to disguise its hand as much. That's really where the challenge is.
What's the effect going to be in the region? You know, Iran is at times aggressive, at the very least provocative, frequently in this region. Does this affect that?
Well, as we know, Iran already has no compunction about exporting weapons to its proxies and partners in the Middle East. And I'm glad you mentioned the region, because there's opportunities for Iran to actually make some money outside the region, perhaps sell some of the things it produces at home. And let's not forget, Iran is something of a significant arms producer to countries like Venezuela, for instance, which also is a partner of its. But in the region, expect to see more arms flowing to, proxies like Lebanese Hezbollah, more component parts for rockets to be made into missiles going to Lebanese Hezbollah, more support for the Assad regime, more backing for Iraqi Shia militias, and perhaps a greater quality of weaponry going to the Houthi rebels in Yemen.
The U.S., under the Trump administration, is the one that decided to leave the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal. And we were the ones sitting at the UN Security Council and had kind of alienated all of our allies there who before signed on to this. Do we bear any of the brunt?
The U.S. bears the brunt not for actually pulling out of the deal in this case, and not for restoring unilateral sanctions, and not trying to have a unilateral arms embargo enforced through secondary sanctions, but the U.S. actually bears the brunt for giving the concession to the Islamic Republic of Iran in mid-2015 to Iran's foreign minister, Mohammad Javad Zarif, where they took a multilateral arms ban that was not subject to a political timetable and subjected it to a 5-year timetable. They then enshrined that in a UN Security Council resolution. So there is an original sin here, and Washington is at fault. But Washington is at fault for not remaining tough enough, not for its sanctions policy.
Behnam, thank you.
Pleasure.